You remember how we say back home, oh, I'm fine, I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But they are not.
They're not. That's true.
Okay. But here, the kid says, okay, my head is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
You just hit me in the head and
Right.
then you're asking me, how am I doing?
Of course I'm hurt.
Of course I'm hurt.
Right.
But back on it, oh yeah, I'm fine. It's okay. God will provide. So, so it's.
Welcome back to Between Two Worlds with Dr. Phebe, the podcast where immigrant parents and children stop talking at each other, but we actually talk to each other, right? I'm your host, Dr. Phebe Brackle. I'm a therapist. I'm a mom. I'm a daughter also. And, someone who has spent a significant portion of her life yapping. I like to yap, and also trying to understand whether my parents were encouraging me or issuing some sort of like legally binding life plan or something like that. So on today's episode, which is going to be called I Sacrificed Everything So That You Wouldn't Have to, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about parents. And, if you grew up in an immigrant household, you've probably heard some sort of like version of this. Maybe it sounded like, do you know what I went through to get you to where you are? Or, when I was your age, at your time, it's just, yeah. Or the classic, we didn't come this way for you to come and struggle, right? And you felt caught between gratitude and pressure, right? And because we're trying to honor our parents, we're trying to make sure that our kids are well taken care of. We're trying to also not feel responsible for paying, right, with our entire life, right? So today we're going to talk about that tension, but from the parent perspective. And so I invited someone that I deeply respect from our community to come and join this conversation, and someone who can maybe help us understand the immigrant parent standpoint, right? And the pressure and, those expectations that we have. So I would love to, have this conversation and see where it goes, right? So today's guest has a lot of wisdom, a lot of life experience, and a perspective that a lot of, immigrant parents have, right?
Yes.
He's a mentor. He's a dear friend of mine, and dare I say, one of the cool uncles. Yeah. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Emmanuel Anusiem.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here too.
I'm excited.
Thanks for making the time. I know that you're a very busy person,
Yeah.
right? And I'm excited to have this conversation with you, because I think a lot of children will think about the pressure, but they don't always hear the fear that is behind the pressure. And so today we're going to try to build that bridge between the two worlds, right? So before we get serious and talk, about all the serious things, there's this part of like immigrant parent math, right? Where there's a very fascinating way that immigrant parents calculate the concept of sacrifice, right? We sacrifice for you, right? And I think we were even talking about this, about like picking up the phone or like answering text messages, right? On our way, right? And sometimes like for immigrant moms, like my mom, she calls, you don't answer the phone, or she texts and you don't respond. And it's, do you know how many months I had to carry you? Right? And,
Yes.
And like, it's just like, wait, hold on. It was just one phone call, right? Or one day you're asking for the Wi-Fi password, and it's, do you know what we had to deal with when we were in school? We didn't have Wi-Fi. We had to walk 20 miles to the library, or maybe 20 kilometers, I should say. And then before you realize, you're talking about things from like 1987 and things like that. And so, I hear you saying yes. So it sounds like, you are agreeing.
Yeah, I really agree to what you're saying, and that I agree to what the parents are saying too. Because when you come from a place with limited resources, so you have to make do whatever you have.
True.
So the idea is that for them to remind you that I went through this in order for you to have this life. So they are not trying to look at it from a different perspective, that, okay, you have like what the kids have now. You know, you can flip on the light on.
Yes.
Okay, they use lanterns. They use a lot of things that they could get up to that point.
Candles.
They use all these kerosene lamps and everything else. So when they are trying to push that, they are not pushing it in the sense they wanted to remind you that don't take everything for granted. That we went through a whole lot for you to be there. Because I remember I used to tell my kids then, I said, hey, do you know Grandpa killed a lion? You know, he said, what? How did he kill it?
Did he really?
How did he kill a lion? Well, he didn't kill a lion. But I was trying to get your attention to the fact that you walk in the bushes, and, you know, for you to eat, you have to get to the bush to go pick up, whether you're picking up sticks or they're picking up trees and everything else, or wood and everything else, and the fruit. So anything can happen when you go in there. So you have to be strong.
Yeah.
So for you now to be attacked by a lion or anything else, then you have to make sure you kill the lion in order for you to survive. So what the parents are trying to tell you is that they're trying to clear picture says, remember where you come from. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Don't let some of all these things, you know, become an analogy of you saying, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. After all, you know, this is how you do it. But it's something that we need to put our mind to. Each and every immigrant parent always have to say that.
Yeah.
And that wakes us up, you know, because like you said, in between two cultures, now we're looking at it and saying, if she do all these things for me and look at what I have now, I need to stood up. I need to, you know, start doing stuff and being able to say that I'm doing the right thing, you know, other than just everything has come to you free.
Right.
You know, so, and easy.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned kids. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, when you think about your upbringing, give us a little bit of a background here and who you are today.
Well, like most Africans and most Nigerians, so I came over here to go to school. Not, you know, this day and age, but that was a long time ago.
You say a long time ago, like, I mean...
Well, a long time ago, meaning, and if you are here in the 2000s, in the 90s, you know, so that's why I consider a long time ago, because the kids would tell me, hey, Dad, you're old now. I say, I understand, because, okay, you look at the phone, I said, you know, I need to search for this. Well, you don't know how to do that? Let me show you. You're old now. So, you know, like most of us, the idea is that if you look at Africa in itself, especially most of us that came from the British colony, the idea is that for everybody wanted to go to school in the UK. Yeah. But then when we started growing up, we said our parents went to school in the UK. Well, why are we going to go to the UK? Everybody wanted to come to the US. Yeah. So that US concept showing us basketball, Magic Johnson, all the rap music and everything else. And everybody wanted to come because it's so cool. Yeah. The people like to talk, you know, the people talk a little bit differently. Yeah, other than what they
you know what I mean?
Exactly. So everybody wanted to do that. Yeah. So when you come in, but the idea is that you're going to realize that you're coming in to go to school because this is most of us that left came here at a time we never, you know, stayed out of our parents' house. This is our first time. Yeah. So some people take that liberty to the next level. Yeah. And they forget school and do all those things. But at the same time, then, so you come in, you started going to school. I came to realize, because I used to tell my kids that I eat a lot of noodles. That's why I hate noodles right now.
Me too.
Because I said, those days you got to say, you have, $10. Yeah. Those days you got to say, if I can spend $2 or $3 to buy noodles, I can put it in there.
Yeah,
you know.
And now we're talking about like the ramen noodles.
Noodles
in the pack.
Exactly,
right,
in the pack.
Yeah,
that's your survival. Yes. You know. Yes. So when you go through all that and you telling them, okay, you're coming over here, you can go to the store, pick whatever you want. Those days you cannot, because you see, when money is coming from Nigeria, from any place else, you're gonna look at it and say, okay, tuition first. How much money do I have remaining? Right. How can I survive up to this? Yeah. So most of us go to school in the night. You go to school in the daytime. In the night, you go to work. Then you come back. Sometimes you sleep in the class. You know, all you need to do is that Mr. A, Mr. B is going to help you. Say this is where the lecture started and it ended here, and in between this is when you slept. So you didn't know what was going on. Say, okay, let me copy whatever you did. So we get it to that point. So I went through the school process. I went through the college thing, and the only thing I promised my parents is that my dad has been somebody that loved education. So I said, whatever the zenith of education is, and that is having a doctorate. I would do that no matter what the situation is. So even if I had to scrap the floor and do anything, but I need to do that to please them, because that's what their interest is. They're not interested in, you come in, you're making money, you say, how much money do you have? They're interested in, what did you study? How can you bring it back to transform people's life back home, to change that concept? Because I remember during the politics those days, somebody would say Queen's English and King's English. So I knew some politicians that went to school in the United States. So they come back, they speak the King's English. And then they create a word. And then you start saying, is that a word? Because then everybody know them. Everybody know, because they are creating a word. They say, okay, that's how we do it in UPenn or this or something like that. But so I said, okay, this is what it's going to be. And it get to a point, the idea was for us to come in and go to school and go back. But unfortunately, when the things started changing, where you come from, then you said, okay, I'll stay back then, started having kids. And now I try to propel to them the importance of the kind of career you wanted to choose. That makes a whole lot of importance when it comes to immigrant parents. We live in a society, it's a diversified society. But then what makes sense and what doesn't make sense? So I was talking to one person, he would say, oh, every African I see, 3 of them or 4 of them are engineers. Okay. Yes. Because the idea is that we come in, we look at the skill set that we have to have in order for us to go back home and say, we can be able to do this. And that's why we get into those. You know what?
I had not thought about that. That is such a great perspective. And I'm glad that you brought that up. What skills are applicable and what can we take back home and help back home? So if you're an engineer, right, that is it's a skill that is translatable.
To a lot of.
And then if you're a doctor, that is a skill that is also translatable. I had not really even thought about that.
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, because it's that was something I was doing those days. I was deciding whether to go to engineering school or go to medical school. But I don't like blood. I can deal with all this people suffering. And I said, okay, I'm going to get into engineering. And then my first degree was in agricultural engineering. But I said, okay, if I go into agricultural engineering, this world, all the people need is food. If I can mechanize agriculture to the point where people are not going to say, this is Africa, they're dying of hunger and everything else. But we have the resources, though. People are telling us, you have all the resources. Why are you not mechanizing your agriculture? So I said, okay, I'm going to get into agricultural engineering to find out how I can mechanize agriculture to the people so that they can be able to be successfully So then people thinking about engineering, they're thinking about medicine. I can go on and discover cholera, discover vaccine for this and that. So that's what we encourage people to do. But now the things have changed. Politicians, they say, if you're a politician, you'll become so rich. If you're this, if you're that, the soft skills that exist, nobody wanted to go into that. Because they want to tell you, if you look at some of the companies here without even mentioning any, they said, if you go to an MBA, just have an MBA, this and that, you'll be a CEO of the company. But you have limitations, being who you are. Because we have companies that will say, if I wanted to have a global presence, I need to have a different face of somebody. Because if I'm having a manufacturing company in Asia or someplace else, then I'm going to go over there. Who would those people respect? They're going to respect a certain kind of person. So now we realize that. And I realized that as a parent. And I'm telling the kids, I said, you're not going to go to that. You got to make sure this is where you are, because it's not about what you study now. It's not about everything else. But you can never be the face. Because I've experienced that so many times. I've experienced it so many times in the sense that I was going to manage a company, be the CEO of the company, and they look at my resume, look at everything else. But unfortunately, when I did the Zoom to talk to everything changed.
Oh.
Because I don't want to see the face of this person.
Yeah.
You have all the stakeholders.
Yeah.
And all these other people under you, they're going to be reporting to, but you are the one that's going to be in charge of this company.
Yeah.
No,
and you'd be the face.
You'll be the face. Because
Right.
then they said, if we go back to the stakeholders to ask for this, to ask for that, and shareholders and everybody we're going to talk to, how are they going to look at you?
How are they going to relate?
How are they going to relate?
Are they going to respect you?
Are they going to respect you? That's another thing again.
Yeah.
Are they going to say, okay, this is it? But it's only that glass ceiling was first broken by Microsoft. And he got a little backlash on it because they were saying it's an American company. Is this, and somebody in Nadal, somebody coming from someplace is the face.
Yeah, yeah.
So Microsoft says, go to any of these schools, of the Ivy League schools, look at the first 10 in every graduating year, and look at the names of the people there. So not only did I bring this person, I want somebody that is technically up to date that knows it.
Okay.
It's not a question of, you going in and saying that you have an MBA, but here understand what the process is and being able to run this a little bit better.
So it sounds like you have had a wealth of knowledge to also share with your children, just based on your career and just being in corporate as long as you have, right? Because you've been in corporate for decades at this point, right?
Yeah.
And so what is something that maybe you, like in thinking about moving from Nigeria and coming to the US, what is something that perhaps you were hoping that your children would have that maybe you didn't? And do you think they recognize that sacrifice?
Yeah, they get, sometimes, they don't think that way, but sometimes you got to bring them back.
Yeah.
So when you go to, my idea was for them to have a global presence.
Okay.
So that they can, extensively, what skills do they have, not beyond where I am.
Right.
Because I said, no matter what the situation is, I'm not going to go to school in Nigerian state, in Nigeria and do all those things.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Even if I have to bring somebody into this world to be able to say, hey, why can you compete?
Right.
Why can you compete in the outside world?
Yeah.
Because when you are cocooned within an area, and that's all you know. So they say, oh, you're good, but you're good in Nigeria. But then can you go beyond that? Because I remember I used to fight with my daughter when she said, oh, Dad, I have an A. I said, why can't you have an A plus? He said, but A is an A. He said, oh, I have an A and I have an A plus. I said, didn't somebody have that A plus? Then she said, well, but it's an A. I said, well, it's supposed to have an A. How many heads do that person have that A plus?
And how many heads do you have, right?
Okay.
Right.
So it's just one. So I want them to compete to the outside world, to have a global presence, so that they can say, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And I'm good at that.
Yeah.
Because because in America, looking at it, when Michael Jordan played basketball, they said, Michael Jordan is the best in the world. See that? So because they look at it, they said, okay, we look in Asia, we look in Africa, we look everywhere. We think Michael Jordan is the best. Okay. So that presence out there, that has helped them a lot. If you start talking about all those personalities that we have in Africa, Ngozi Iweala, Okonjo Iweala, who is the head of the World Trade Organization, is if he would have grew up, stayed in Nigeria or in Africa and everything else, nobody would have recognized her skills. Nobody would have recognized how important he could be in the world economy to change things.
Right.
Okay. So that was my intention.
Yeah.
My intention is for them to have that global presence and be able to compete within, outside of, who they are.
Yeah. So that exposure. And I mean, like I think about my kids, they're much younger, but I think that's one of the reasons why I would say that I encourage a lot of that global learning, right?
Yeah.
Right now, my oldest is very much into flags and world stuff, maps, right? Things like that. And I encourage that because I think it's a skill that is going to be very necessary.
Exactly.
And he started teaching himself Russian at a very young age.
Fantastic.
Right. And so I don't speak Russian, right? And so I've heard, even things in the past from like other African parents who are like, why would why would he be wasting his time with Russian? Why aren't you having him learn our Ghanaian language? And mind you, I'm trying there, right? And I brought it up to him, and he said, can we save that for later? And it hurt my feelings a little bit, but at the same time, I had to look at things a little bit more broadly. And so I think you're putting language to what I had been imagining and maybe had not put words to, that we want our children to be able to be global, right? Because America is not the world.
Yes.
Right. And Nigeria or Ghana is also not the world. There's so many things outside of that. And I think that if we as parents, as immigrant parents, would even have these conversations with our children, I think that would make it would make a difference.
It will really make a difference, because I'm happy you say that, because I have a conversation with somebody, one of my friends, and he was talking about these kids need to learn how to speak Nigerian language. I said, Nigerian language is the international language. Would that language make them culturally? Yes. When you say about culture, you wanted to know how to say, okay, speak the local local dialect.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good.
Yes.
But now when you come to the global world, where are you supposed to interact with other people else? Because the advantage you have is the language.
Yeah.
I work with this individual over at World Trade Center in Tacoma. He speaks Japanese and he speaks Chinese. So he speaks both languages.
Right.
So he is, whenever anything that have to do with trade with Japan, he's the go-between.
go-to, right?
Exactly. So when a kid understand how to speak like Igbo, like Ashanti or whatever, okay. So if he knows, would that go beyond that area? That was the same global presence you're talking about. Because today, if I know how to speak Russia, I speak a very good Russian, I'm not Russian, right? American government will seek after me. Because that's what happened in Afghanistan. They started looking at the people that speak that language during the war, so to translate what is being said. So we need to look beyond our conclave, look beyond and says what can be done in the outside world. Other than I prefer the kid learning how to speak Russian, learning how to speak French, learning how to speak this, learning how to speak that, because it's an international language, a global world.
And we really don't allow ourselves to think big or think beyond our borders. And I think part of that is also a result of colonialism too, right? And so we have parents like you who are really trying hard to go beyond that. And I wonder if there's any fears that you have when it comes to some of the pressure, for example, that we might be putting on our kids. What's the worry there? What's the concern?
Well, the concern is that we need to pick and choose what needs to be done. Because you got to put into consideration their mental health. Because if you push these kids a lot, propagate them and say this is what needs to be done. But then, because I see somebody like a podcast, talking about, Nigerian parents, this is what they need to do, this is what they need to do. But I think what I advise a lot of parents, a lot of African parents, is to have conversation with their kids. Other than imposing. Okay, understand where they're coming from. Sometimes you got to listen to them. So most parents, what we do that we don't even listen to them. We just said, I go clean up your room, do this, do that. He didn't say whether he said, I'm not feeling good, I'm not feeling fine, or something else. So that's part of the things that we need to have a conversation, sit down and talk to them and be able to understand where they are coming from, the decisions they are trying to make. Because here we said in Africa, you're 30 years old, you can still live in your parents' house. Here, when the kid is 18, he's out. Okay. Now, when the kid is out, you're going to follow him and says, all the said that if you have set that pace for them to be able to go through things and be able to understand how things work, that will help other than imposition. Most of our immigrant parents are imposing. And when you impose, you do wrong. I tell my kid, my son play a lot of basketball. And I said to him, I said, bro, you play basketball, that's good. Okay.
Wait, did you really call him bro?
Yeah.
Do you call him bro?
Yeah, I call him bro. So I said,
kids are calling me bro too. I'm like, no, I'm on me. Okay.
So I said, if you play basketball, but think about it though. If you get into sports medicine, physical therapy, whatever, and everything else, those individuals that play basketball will be coming to you to help them sustain. So you got to have a career that will sustain you for a very long time. Because basketball might end after 10 years, 5 years, 7 years. You get injured, nobody's going to, your contract is done.
It's done.
But you are the one that's going to say, you wanted to condition in yourself?
I'm your guy.
I'm your guy. You pay people are paying you millions for you to. Now, here's what I said, when you start choosing a career, think about it. So you set that pace for them at the beginning, and you said, you're a medical doctor, you're this, you that, this is what you would be doing. Think about it. So don't think about something that is going to say, I know kids that was up there, I want to be a musician, I want to sing this, I want to sing a song, because they sing in the bathroom. But that does not mean, if your parents is going to sit down and tell you, say, no, that's not something for you. If you do X, Y, Z, that will help.
Right. So it's about, recognizing the skills that our kids have, right? And also like building that and helping them propel, that's it. And take off, right? But the thing too is that if you don't have curiosity about the skills that your kids have, you're not going to know.
No, you're not going to know.
Right. And so I know that for a lot of us as immigrant parents, our kids get out of school, you come home, go and wash your hands, come and eat, come and do your homework, come and do this. And then, we're putting them into this almost like a box where we have these kids who have routine and that's just it, right? And I know that we live in an age of technology where the kids are exposed to a lot more tech than we were growing up, right? Maybe I was a little bit kind of just thinking about it, but not as much as right now. And so my kids are iPad kids, right? And I know that there's a lot of folks who talk about, you shouldn't give your kids electronics and all of those things, like, and
I don't agree to that.
Right. Yeah. Like, you shouldn't give them this. But then one of the things, and I remember even my dad was saying, they spend so much time on the iPad. And I remember having to explain to him, you realize that the oldest is teaching himself programming.
See?
On here.
Yes.
And I wouldn't have known if I hadn't sat down with him to ask, what are you doing on your iPad? Right? What are you doing on here? Right. So there was that curiosity, and that is one of the things that helped us even connect some more.
Exactly.
Where, I will ask the middle one too, hey, what are you doing? And he's designing like flags on there, or, he's learning all of these different things. And so I think that what I'm trying to say is that we as parents also need to be curious about our children, right? Because we have all these fears. If my child doesn't do this, they're not going to succeed. They're going to be a burden on me. They're going to be blah, blah. But do you even know your kid?
That's,
right? Like, do you know your child?
That is the most important thing. You have to know your kid. Because they said, I give them this, they might go look into a different side. Well, how are they going to go to that side if you didn't have a conversation with them and let them know that this is wrong and this is right, this is where you're supposed to be going? So they know how to divide their attention, but we don't believe in our kids. So we go by our own mentality and saying the negativity in our mind and what we see on television or the news is going to propel us right there and then, and we start saying, this is why. And when you send that to the universe, that's what you're going to get.
That is exactly what, that's exactly what's going to happen, because you see things on the news, for example, about teenagers, and I know especially like the teen years are very trying for a lot of parents, and especially for us also as immigrant parents too. And you're familiar with that because you've raised teens, right? And you see things happening on the news, or you hear things happening like in their different schools and all that, and we are always making these assumptions that if they're going to go out, that they're going to be doing this, they're going to be doing that. Yes. And come to find out that that's not even the case. There's so many immigrant children or like second, third gen kids that I talk to whose parents like don't have a clue who they are, right? And they're like, well, my kid is so quiet, he doesn't talk, he doesn't do this, or she's this. And then I'm like, yo, you realize your kid is like the kid at school, like they're the popular kid. When they are at school, they're getting the fist bumps and the high fives, like they are a totally different person.
Exactly.
Right. And the there's this other part, and I'll switch conversations here a little bit, but for this newer generation or the younger generation, there's a lot of focus on boundaries, on mental health, on self-care. I mean, you mentioned, mental health earlier, and me being a therapist, that's always like my go-to, right? We are having more conversations about therapy, and I'm wondering for you, as you're seeing the younger generation, like what is surprising you, or what is kind of putting a smile on your face when you think about the younger generation and how maybe they're doing things differently from how we did them?
Well, how much knowledge they have. That's another thing again. Another thing again is the positivity in their life.
Oh, yes.
Because this case never said, I can't do anything. They can do it.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I was telling somebody when I was young, I traveled all the way from Atlanta to Seattle. I was driving a Volvo, an old Volvo.
Well, you drove?
I drove.
By yourself?
By myself. Oof. In the snow.
Ooh.
So, I came to some place in Utah, Denver, and it was so snowing. And I traveled for about an hour or 2 hours without even knowing where I'm going. But now I wouldn't do it.
Well, because at that time, there's no GPS. You're relying on maps.
There's no GPS. And at that time, I was younger. And be able, so with all these kids now, they're looking at something you might say is a fear factor for them. For you, it's not a fear factor for them.
It's not.
They have that positivity in them already. Says, I can do anything.
Right.
They're not out there saying, I cannot do it. Okay, this and that. Oh, yeah, I'll do it. You know, they want to sky diving. They want to do it. But for us now, we say, oh, no. Oh, what happened? Why is this? Why is that? Why?
Yeah.
When you put the why in you, it tends to draw you down a little bit.
Yes.
But for them, so that positivity in them, that's what I like. That's what put a smile on my face, that they can be able to do anything. What you might come in and say, oh, I'm scared of this, I'm scared of, what about if this thing happen? They go for it.
They do it. And you know what? One theme that I've also noticed is parents feeling like they don't know their children, and they don't tell me anything, because when they come and tell you, you come and ask them why, how, all this stuff, and you push them down.
Anytime you have that negativity in them, this is what I told somebody the other day. I said, hey, you're praying for the kid. The kid is traveling. He's going somewhere. He said, oh, I pray so that he will not. He's not going to get in an accident or something that's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. All the bad people is going to be out of the way.
Right.
But he didn't, first of all, tell the kid, I need you to drive safely.
Right.
60 miles per hour. Don't go more than 60 miles per hour.
Right.
Don't go this, don't go that.
Right.
Be careful of your environment. Be careful when you're driving, how you drive.
Right.
Not a question of telling, because the kid is going to be, when you tell them there, they say, okay, my dad or my mom already prayed for me.
Right.
I'm going to be flying because the prayer is there. So nothing
the prayer is going to work. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Something is going to happen.
Right.
Nothing is going to happen. But first of all, the kids respect the laws of the land. First of all, they respect the laws that govern them before anything else.
Right.
So when they have that respect for anything, they say, don't talk to somebody like that. It's not good. It's not, you're not telling them, don't talk to somebody like that because you will not go to heaven or you go to hell. They say it is not right. Morally, it's not right. Right. That's all they need.
Right.
So that's the difference between us and bridging that gap.
Yeah.
For us parents to know that you need to spend some time with these kids and talk to them and get to understand where they are coming from. Then you can be able to make that corrective decision on what needs to be done. But no, we don't. With that imposition, it's killing us a lot. But the younger generation's parents now are coming in and saying, okay, nobody say you should be best friends with your daughter or you should be best friends with your son.
Right.
But the idea is that you guys need to have a conversation
have a relationship.
That borders on, tell me what is going on, and I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you that, and I'll advise you.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we don't have to be best. Like, I have my own best friends, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have my own people that I'll go and talk to.
Exactly.
You to go and have your own best friends. Right?
Yeah.
And I also, speaking of parents wanting to do differently, like, I also want to be the person that you come to when there's an issue. Right? I want to be the person that you come to when you're having a hard time with your friend.
Yes.
Right? Or you hear about somebody gossiping about you, or you don't know how to talk to this person about this particular issue, right? And, I think that as parents too, sometimes we just have this whole like advice giving culture, and we don't even ask our kids what they're needing. And that's one of the things that I've learned to do, right? And I've also been teaching some of the people in my life too, right? Because sometimes when I come to you with a problem, I'm not asking for advice. Sometimes I just need to just verbalize it. I need to just vent and say. But I think that as parents, a lot of times we don't look at our children as human beings. right? We just look at them as, this is somebody that I brought into this world.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
And it dehumanizes them. But if we talk to them and treated them the way that we treat and honor our friends,
yes.
I think that it would really make a huge difference, because then you respect them. You want to hear their thoughts.
Exactly.
You want to explore things with them. You want them to be able to explain to you why they think the way that they think, right? And in our culture, we talk about, oh, you don't talk back, and, you know, I'm not one of your little friends, and those kinds of things. And we lose out on an opportunity to connect with our children in that way. Because I won't say that I argue with my kids, but I want them to be able to explain themselves. Because at the end of the day, we're teaching communication.
Yes.
Right? We are the first place, we are the primary triad for a lot of these kids, for all of these kids, really. And so we have an opportunity to teach them, right, some of these things. Teach them how to communicate, teach them how to make their points, teach them how to argue.
Yes.
You know?
So that's one of the good things about raising kids overseas or raising kids in the Western world. You know, you give them that leverage for them to be able to speak their mind. They don't care about relationship. They don't care that, okay, you're my best friend, but whatever you do, if you do something wrong, they will speak.
Right.
You know, so, but we have that culture back home. You're not supposed to speak to your older one like that. You guys respect that. But the older ones be doing something wrong, then the kids are not going to say anything just because they are older. So that is part of the culture that need to be erased. I don't consider that culture. People need to speak up their mind.
Right.
Whatever is bothering them, whatever is doing, they need to speak up. They don't have to do some white lies or tell you this, They want to. Because back home, somebody's is doing something. You remember how we said back home, oh, I'm fine, I'm good.
Yeah.
But they are not.
They're not. That's true.
Okay. But here, the kid says, okay, my head is hurting. You just hit me in the head, and then you're asking me, how am I doing?
Of course I'm hurt.
Of course I'm hurt.
Right.
But back on this, oh yeah, I'm fine. It's okay. God will provide. So, you know, so it's
God will provide. I mean, God is always a provider.
God is always a provider, but you got to get to a point where you said, I'm going to take the bull by the horn and I'm going to help myself. Then I will go to God. I said, okay, you know, but
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think also for those who are immigrant children or children of immigrants, you know, the second and third gen who might be watching or listening to, there is also this part where sometimes we neglect that our parents also grew up in a world very different from ours.
Exactly.
Very, very different. And so in as much as we want them to adjust to us and what our needs are, there's also a level of understanding that we have to offer, right?
Yeah.
And so if you could speak directly to like the immigrant children, right? The second gen, the third gen, you know, all of those whose parents have come from overseas, have had them here, for example, if you could speak to them, and the ones especially who are feeling like that pressure, the guilt, you know, all of those things, trying to make their parents proud while trying to also choose things that make sense for them in the world that they live in now, you know, what do you want them to understand about the love behind their parents' sacrifices also?
Well, first of all, I would like to let them know that they should understand the parents one bit. At least they come from a different culture, a different concept of reasoning. Okay. And another thing again is that we might not approach it a little bit the way they like it.
Yeah.
But every parent, especially immigrant parents, always want the best for their kids.
Yeah.
No matter what the situation is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because I see kids that say, you don't like me, you treat me anyhow, you're just gonna do this. No.
Yeah.
They always wanted to help.
Right.
So the idea is that understand where they are coming from. Your success is their success.
Yeah.
So if you become an important personality, it is on the family.
Yeah.
They will be proud of it, because immigrant parents are always dependent on their kids, that the kids make them proud.
Yeah.
Because that is one thing that, you know, motivates them. So for the younger ones, and I'm letting them know that if you have an issue or if you don't understand anything, sit down with your parents. If your parents is behaving somehow, understand the fact they come from a different culture.
Yes.
They come from a different whole new beginning. That will still manifest, because they will not change overnight. But if you continue realizing or having that conversation that they don't want the best for you, and that your success is dependent on them, and they are so proud, and they will go out there, because, you know, back home, like now, you know, you come in now when somebody see your mom, they will say, "How's Phoebe doing?
Yeah.
How's this? How's that?" You know,
right,
or
yeah.
you know, now she will go on and say, "Oh, Phoebe's this, Phoebe's that, Phoebe's doing, you know, Phoebe had all this practice and everything." Is not, she's not talking about herself. She's talking about Phoebe right now.
Right.
Okay, so immigrant parents always want that.
Yeah.
You know, they want that. It's not over here. You see, Joe, hey, how's your kid? Oh, he's in North Carolina. I haven't seen him in a long time. You know, so because individualistic, you know, self-centered. But here we're talking about the family, the high context culture.
Yeah.
So it's all about family.
Yeah.
When your family is growing, when your family is doing well, you are doing well.
Yeah.
You know, it come to you. So.
Well, and I mean that leads to this episode's, you know, bridge the gap tip. You know, every time I try to like leave a little tip for both sides, you know, and so you're mentioning a great thing here, you know, for the children, having those conversations with their parents. Ask your parents, talk to your parents, ask them what they sacrificed, right? Yeah. Talk to them about their history, what was happening in their lives, what are they afraid of, how was life different for them? Yeah, we get tired of the same stories over and over again, but there's a reason why they're sharing those stories with us. There's a reason why they're talking to us about these different things, and the fact that they had to carry water on their head in a bucket for several miles, right? I think that sometimes we forget that they're trying to give us a frame of context, right? Like there's something to help us to see, hey, I did all this so that you didn't have to do that.
Do that. Exactly.
You know, because I even think about my kids right now, and I think about them like trying to carry a bucket on their heads, and I'm like, oh God, like, no, I wouldn't want my kid to go through that, right? And I did it because Ghana water, right? Yeah. And so for also the tip for the parents also is for us, because I'm a parent myself, but for us to really get to know our children and also talk to them about some of the fears that we have. And one of the fears that I know a lot of times we have, and maybe you might relate to this, is that our kids are not going to be successful. And one day when the Lord calls us home, what is our legacy?
Exactly.
Right? What have we left? And, but at the same time, we don't talk to our kids about that. No. To help them understand, like, yes, I might be talking to you about going to medical school because I want you to be successful. I want you to have a certain level of financial stability.
That's it.
When I'm no longer around, right? Because it's not going to be every day that you're going to be able to call me and say, hey, can I get $100?
Yeah.
Right? Can you give me some pounds?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately, we don't know how to communicate that because I don't think we even understand that fear ourselves as parents.
Yeah.
I don't think that we give ourselves a chance to really do that. So if this conversation resonated with you, I would absolutely encourage you to share this with the immigrant parents that you know, the immigrant kids that you know, everybody out there who needs to hear this conversation, so that we can continue to bridge that gap, right? And make sure that even though we're living in what feels like two separate worlds, that we still have a sense of togetherness because we're community. We need each other, right? And so I really appreciate you talking about this. Are there any like final thoughts before we wrap up?
Before we wrap up, I will advise the parents, on the other hand, to quit recounting what you sacrifice for them. Just at least sometimes they've had it so many times over and over again, because I know some Nigerian parents say, this guy she go kill me, this and that. But quit recounting. Start having an honest one-on-one conversation with them, and being able to say, this is what I did. If you tell the story one time, just leave it alone. You know, when they messed up or do something wrong, always advise them on what needs to be done and how to reassess themselves back to it and readjust themselves, and be able to say, okay, this is the recovering process. I need to do this so that I can be better. But don't just, if you continue doing that, then it's a push up. So when you continue pushing them away, because every time you got to he's going to talk about how this and
blah
that
blah blah. It's like white noise at some point.
Exactly. So that's the advice to.
That's a great point. I appreciate you saying that. And thanks for coming over and having this conversation with me.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that we've talked about a lot of different perspectives. I've left with a couple of things to even think about myself, and so I appreciate your openness and also, just being the cool dad that you are to your kids too. I think it's awesome.
I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us again for another episode. If you have any thoughts or ideas, any topics that you're like, hey, Phoebe, you should talk about this one too, you know where to find me. You can find me over at Instagram or on Instagram on whatever the case is, right? On the IG. Yeah. You can slide into my DMs respectfully. Okay. At Phebe Brackle. Wait, no, it's Dr. Phebe Brackle. Dr. Phebe Brackle, right? But then on my website, it's PhoebeBrackleLMFT.com, right? Sometimes I forget the doctor part, but anyway, I have people in my life like you who always remind me about that. Please leave your comments. Make sure you hit subscribe, and we'll be back with another episode next time. Take care.
Okay.
So guess what? We are opening up some slots for a sponsorship. If you've been watching or listening to this podcast and you've been enjoying it as much as we have been enjoying recording it, I would love to invite you to consider sponsoring us. You can reach out to me at consult@PhoebeBrackleLMFT.com. That's consult@PhoebeBrackleLMFT.com. We have a wide range when it comes to our audience, and we would love for our audience to hear about you, your service, or your product. Thank you so much.